All right, welcome back to another episode of the Vets in Real Estate Podcast. This week we are joined by Robert Hart, who is a former Navy sailor, now turned real estate professional, both doing brokerage and investments. Robert, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate you having me, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so tell us about what you did in the Navy.
Gunner's mate, so small weapons, weapon systems, things like that. I did a couple of deployments. I wasn't in very long. I was only in for just a hair under 4 years.
Okay,
I did the early out program with going to college.
gotcha. So was real estate on your radar early on and just kind of decided to go in the Navy first, or was real estate kind of after the Navy? How did?
No, I don't even know what I want to do when I grow up still, man, to be honest with you. No, real estate wasn't even on the radar at all. So when I was in college, I had a roommate and he talked about knowing this guy that owned 10 duplexes. And I'm like, what's the point of that? And he goes, he gets paid every month from the renters and so forth, everything. So at the time, Barnes and Nobles and Borders was extremely popular. I'm aging myself here, but that's fine. So I went down there and bought as many real estate books as I could. And poor college kid, books are 10, 15, $20. So I was buying as many books as I could. I read them cover to cover and over and over and over again, just trying to pick up a little more each and every time that I was making it through the book. Because, there wasn't all these influencers on there and podcasters and all this stuff at the time. So the best thing I could do, because I didn't know anybody, was just read these books. And so I just did it cover to cover over and over and over again. And after I graduated, started making some money, was saving a bunch of money, putting money away. And then I bought my first owner occupied and my first investment property when I was 30. Didn't have my real estate license at the time.
What, out of curiosity, what books was it that you read cover to cover that you thought you got the most value out of?
Man, the only book that really stands out, and I don't even know if it was because of the content, but it's probably from the title, was Buy and Hold Forever. But just about any other real estate, guy at some point in time reads Rich Dad Poor Dad, right?
Sure, it's the
And
gateway drug.
so
Yeah,
it's like the holy grail. Even though it's not really a real estate book, a lot of people classify it as such, and so that
sure.
that probably really got me hooked and really changed my mindset about how to live my life, I guess you could say.
Okay. And that's fair. And honestly, that was kind of what got me into it as well. We had a command financial specialist in the Army who basically gave a very rich dad, poor dad-esque retirement speech. And I was like, huh, you make more money as an investor than you do as an E6 in the Army with 20 odd years. I probably should be doing what you're doing. So yeah, I totally get it. And I think I did the same thing. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad cover to cover multiple times through the next couple deployments as well. So you started in as a investor. How did and then you've now moved into brokerage as well. How did investing in brokerage, how do they differ?
Significantly, you got to look at them through completely different lenses. And so, not to bash on a lot of real estate agents, but a lot of real estate agents don't even own a house. A lot of them rent, right? And so, here's a really good example for you. Back in March of 2020, the world was shutting down, right? Schools were closed and businesses were closed and essential workers only, all those types of things. Well, this agent friend of mine, she called me and she's like, "Hey, I've got a client that needs to sell. He's the lead singer of a cover band and he does weddings and all this stuff. And so everything got canceled. The guy was strapped for money. This is before mortgage forbearance were happening. This is before stimulus checks and all this stuff. And so if he could have, seen the futures like anybody else would, he probably wouldn't have panicked sold, but he did. And so I can move quick. I've always got cash on the sideline ready to go, dry powder, just because of examples like this. And so she called me. All she did was she wanted her 3%. That's it. If and keep in mind that this particular person rents and still rents today. Love her to death, but she still doesn't own a house. So she called me, and at the time the house was worth, let's call it 275. He again panic selling. I picked it up for 167, 395 because he hit me at like 200. We negotiated all the way down to like 167 and some change. I put 15 grand into it, rented it out for a few years. I sold it last year for I think 345 or so. And so after I bought it, I went back and put debt on it and pulled my money out. So my base is essentially had no money in the thing, right? So we were building this house at the time that I'm sitting in right now. And one of the things was the wife wanted a pool in the backyard. So I said, okay, at some point in time, we'll do a pool in the backyard. And so I sold it. I netted right around 150 or so after everything was all said and done. That money is now in the backyard. I've still got my original basis in the bank account, right? And so that is a stark difference between looking at it through an agent eyes versus an investor's eyes.
Okay. So why, if you've done well with the investing side, why add the agent role?
Uh, you mean why have the brokerage?
Yeah, why have the brokerage? Why go that route as well?
I need something to do. I mean,
Fair.
I retired from my big boy job or made work optional as of last year.
Okay.
Um, so I got my broker's license because I wanted to be able to source my own deals.
Mm.
And so I've got these agents. Part of the thing with it with the brokerage is I get first right of refusal on all properties that come through. So we've got all these leads that come in every day. Agents filter through them. They take the listings, they get it sold, they work with the buyers, all that stuff. Sometimes I'll take a listing, but for the most part, I want my people to eat first. And so they take those listings and we do the wholesale deals, whatever works best for the seller. And so it's just another conduit for me to be able to source my own deals with, really.
Okay, I can see that. And of course, if you've got them now, like I said, you just said you're from basically Dallas to Austin. You got a pretty wide swath of properties you're taking a look at.
Sure, absolutely.
So how does managing that many assets and across that much time, how's that worked out for you?
You
Or is what
mean like the property management part of it?
Yeah, or just staying up on local trends. I mean, if you're in Dallas and you've got something in Austin, that's a 4 hour drive, difference. There's definitely micro factors that are going on. How have you kept up with that?
I don't personally do any buying or selling in the Austin area. The
Okay,
agents down there know those areas better than I do. So if anything,
gotcha.
I default to them and we respect their opinion and advice. I might dig into the details on the data and see what's going on. But for the most part, I just default to them on those particular things. But for investing, I don't do anything down there. It's only up here in DFW because I've got my network I've got my AC guy, I got my electrician, I got my plumber, I've got all those people, right? And so I don't have anybody down there to be able to facilitate in doing rehab projects, whether it's a flip, which I very rarely do flips, or whether it's a long-term buy and hold.
Okay. I guess that sounds kind of contrary to some of the advice you hear from some of the bigger pockets and those kind of things. Is go find a deal. But you've kind of stayed relatively, and of course, DFW is a massive market, but you've kind of stayed relatively local. Is it been just because what you can manage, having the team, having the resources, or have you had other thoughts on just staying kind of relatively local with your investments?
But I prefer to be able to be hands-on and touch it and feel it whenever I need to. Um, some people say they're successful at remote investing, and if they are, fine. Good for them. I'm proud of
Mm-hmm.
them. It's not the way I work. I like to be able to be hands-on. I like to be able to touch and see the property. I like to know my contractors, all that stuff. I think it works out better. I don't know. I assume it works out better in the long run because a lot of times some of these remote investors will give money to contractors and the contractors just never show up. They don't have an established relationship with them, right? You only hear the good stuff on that from, in my opinion, for the most part, versus the reality of things.
No, and that's fair. And I think we've all heard the roofer that shows up and you give money and they bounce. We think we've all heard those stories after the hailstorm or whatever comes on. It sadly happens more often than what we'd like to hear. So I can imagine, have those trusted relationships. How did you go about building those trusted relationships?
Uh, The biggest piece of advice I can give, like to your listeners, is whenever your contractor is done, pay them that day.
Hmm.
Even if they say they don't need to get a check that day, stroke them a check, be done with it, and say, hey man, I got your money right here. Some of these people hide from their contractors and don't want to pay it and hold on to cash a little bit longer, whatever. And burn those relationships. I promise you, I can call my AC guy right now, and he'll get to whatever I need to get to and drop whatever he's doing and prioritize me over somebody else because we built that relationship. Same thing with my contractor. If he's got subs that he works with, like I was at a project yesterday where we're I don't know, maybe 65% the way through it. It's an older house, and so I'm going to put new insulation in it. And he's like, "Hey, I'll just give you my insulation guy's phone number." And so, there's no upcharge on that. I've got great relationships with all these people because you always try to. The biggest thing for me is operating above board all the time if you possibly can.
Do you think there's anything for your time in the Navy that's kind of helped you as an investor?
As an investor, no. As a leader, yes, because you know this from experiences. We've all had good leaders, and we've all had probably more bad leaders than good leaders when in the military, right?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And so you just take what you don't like, make sure you don't repeat it.
And are you seeing that more in the brokerage and managing the brokerage where that's kind of come into play?
Just I hear these stories. I was interviewing this girl not too long ago about coming to work with us. She had left a different brokerage. This is just one side of the story, though, right? So, and I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to get into finite details about it. But just not operating above board, right? And it's like, the agent works a lead or whatever, and then the broker or the lead agent takes over and doesn't give anything to the agent that had been working that thing. So that agent's just cut out, right? You're not establishing long-term relationships that are both mutually beneficial.
Okay, and that's fair. So, what if, as a new agent, I mean, what, so you don't fall into that situation, what should a new agent be doing to, I guess, watch out for maybe those brokerages that aren't offering or aren't operating above board? Do you have advice for a new agent that's trying to start looking, especially a veteran, trying to find that first brokerage?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a tough question to answer because they don't know what they don't know, right?
Mhm.
And so the biggest thing I can probably say is ask other agents, interview lots of different brokerages, find out what their splits are, find out what their culture's like, find out, if they're all about going out for happy hour and having drinks. That might be the warm, fuzzy feeling that agent needs and fits in with, right? They might fit in better with a brokerage that is mission focused and deal driven, right? And so those are stark contrasts with how businesses are run, and so some people don't fit in with certain cultures, which is fine. But as far as being truthful with brokerages and interviewing all these other agents and stuff, it's people think they get their license and everything's going to be, green pastures and all these commissions are just going to start flowing in, right?
It's on HGTV. It's easy.
Yeah, it's super easy. The deals, your phone just starts ringing off the hook, man. And that's why I think it's why the washout rate is so high in the industry, right? And so they got all these shows on TV, and a lot of times agents will get into a brokerage after they get their license, and the first thing the broker tells them is like, "All right, I'm not providing any leads. I'm not providing really any sales training. Call all your friends and family, find out who needs to sell, find out who needs to buy. When they do, bring it over to me, and then we'll work it together." And then they'll take some monster split like 80-20, 80 to the brokerage and then 20 to the agent, or the broker might get 50 and then the other agent might get 20, and then there might be 30% left over for the agent that brought the deal in. And so that agent is probably already struggling anyway, and they don't have any kind of guaranteed money coming in every month. They have to pay their dues and all the other things that go along with it. They're barely scraping by, right? And so that's not what I would call a mutually beneficial relationship.
But not that exact. situation is common, but it's not necessarily uncommon either in the industry. But what if a brand new agent or brand new veteran that's coming out looking at that? I mean, how what should they know? What if you were talking to the brand new agents coming out of the military, transitioning in? I mean, what would be the things they should research, or how can they understand the things they don't know?
That's tough, man, because a lot of it is, paperwork is paperwork. You can hire a TC, right? Or the broker can
Mm-hmm.
help out with the paperwork. The biggest thing is staying as close to revenue as possible. When I say that, meaning generating sales. Generate sales by working leads. That's whether they sign up with some sort of third party out there, like a Zillow thing or whatever, that'll provide leads, and you got to get some sort of split, or paying for your own leads or something like that. But the biggest thing is the sales training that goes along with it, because they don't teach any of the sales training stuff. And so if you don't know how to sell, you don't have a previous experience in sales, you're absolutely going to get slaughtered.
No, and I can see that. And as we've done interviews over and over, we hear from the recruiters, we hear from those folks that have moved into sales, which makes it absolutely natural. But somebody like you or me who weren't in those roles, I mean, other than the brokerage, is there someplace else to find those sales roles? Maybe you found a brokerage they love, but they're not necessarily getting that tools or those resources. Have you found anything that coaching or anything like that that would be worthwhile for an agent to look at?
Yeah, so we partnered with a really good sales training company out there, and so we pay for the actual sales training
Hmm.
for each one of our agents, and it's very if there's one book I could recommend other than real estate investing stuff for sales stuff, I would say it's the book by Chris Voss, Never Split the
The
Difference.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I've probably been through that book 5 or 6 times. I've sent some of my agents through the Black Swan training as well, which
Hmm.
works out extremely well. And there's another individual named Brandon Mulrennan, and so he's got his group is called Reverse Selling, and so that sales training, hands down, it's probably the best investment any real estate agent can make when it comes to the sales training stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's what's tough is that there's so many people out there that are selling things to real estate agents, and I often joke I was like, if you can't make money in real estate, you just make money selling things to real estate agents, and I joke because I have training, I teach classes, like I joke that I'm doing the same thing, a little bit, but there are so many places that are trying to take an agent's money. Like, how as a new agent are you supposed to sort through all that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is they need to find somebody that can be a good mentor to them, and that is going to be completely honest with them, and show them the ropes, so to speak. The hard part is somebody that doesn't have anybody in their network that already has the experience. And just because that person has the experience doesn't mean they can convey the information properly so the other person can understand it, right?
Yeah. No, I can certainly see that being part of the struggle, and especially the veteran leaving the military, having really no safety net, having nobody else around. I mean, are there places to go that those veterans can find, kind of the like-minded other veterans they can kind of connect with? Have you found that, or
I, I,
is
I have not.
no? Well, that's hopefully what we're trying to do with the Vets Real Estate Podcast. Hopefully, help build that if they don't already have it. But I'm sure you kind of felt a little like I did when you got out of the service. You're kind of like, all right, everybody's weird. They're not like the military side. And you sound like you were in for a short time, like I was. So I mean, you think after 4 or 5 years, you wouldn't be as changed as you are. But I mean, you really are.
Yeah, I mean, even after a short period of time, you become, I hate to use the word because it has such a negative connotation to it, institutionalized,
Yeah.
right? And so I think a lot of that stuff leaves us, but some of it still stays in, like, for a very long period of time, even up until before I quit my big boy job, I was still waking up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, going to the gym for a couple hours, coming back, getting ready for the day, going to do my day stuff. and then coming home, looking at investment stuff, working on other businesses, things like that. And so there's a lot of benefits to it, as you and I both already know, but you can definitely become too entrenched in it.
I think I found that interesting because I thought I was the only one for the longest time. The more and more interviews we've done, I've found enough people that they still get up at 4:30, 5:30 in the morning. They get up. Maybe they don't go to the gym, but they're usually the first one in the office. They're usually like they are attacking the day first off. And I honestly thought I was weird until we started doing more of these conversations. But it sounds like you're doing the same thing. You know, I'm still chubby. I'm not going to the gym. You know, you obviously are going to the gym and not chubby. But I think it's interesting that that's something that just so many of us are doing, and I guess not realizing that it is institutionalization. Right? We are, still kind of referring back to our time in the military. And I'm sure you've been out for a few years like I have, and still, decade later, still impacting the way
Yeah,
you live life.
absolutely, and not bashing it at all. I mean, my dad still says it on a regular basis. He goes, "Man, I think that I think going to the Navy is the best thing for you." I mean, I
Mm.
barely graduated high school, right? And so no discipline, no. I look back at it all and just like he's probably right. I don't give it as much credit as I probably should, but he's probably right.
So when you got out, you said you had a big boy job, so you had something else you were doing after you got out of the Navy. Was there anything that was just culturally different for you that when you're working just in a non-real estate role that you noticed that kind of stood out from your time in service?
Well, I took my time in service very, very serious.
Hmm.
Uniform. I mean, you've got people on this end of the spectrum, on this end of the spectrum, right? And you got these people that probably shouldn't be in anyway, and their uniform always looks terrible, their hair always looks terrible, they're not very well groomed, all that stuff. And you got people, your uniform is always pressed and all that. And so I took it all the way to this side, always squared away. And so even when I got out, I finished a 4-year degree in 2 years because I was taking anywhere from 18 to 23 hours a semester. I took no summers off. I had a full-time job, and I started an online bookstore for college kids while I was doing all of that. And so I just kept adding more and more to my plate. Again, going back to my discipline and my level of intent, it served me extremely well.
So this is something we've had some fun discussions around as well. Sounds like you've got yourself in multiple different lines of work, not just real estate. You've got a few different businesses, those kind of things as well. Yeah.
I have, and so we didn't touch on this, but I started a property management business, and I built that up when I sold that off.
Hmm.
And so that was the main reason why I even got my license to begin with,
Gotcha.
because in Texas, you already know you have you can manage your own stuff, that's fine, but if you want to manage other people's stuff, you have to have a license to do it.
So what is a day when it comes to property management? Then, I mean, do you think that's a great place for veterans to start in the industry?
It could be if they like dealing with all that stuff. I didn't like it one bit.
Well,
So,
like,
and that's one reason why I don't own it anymore. I mean, I, I got tired of just going through property manager after property manager, and it was always the same stuff. It was, again, have to have your license in Texas to be able to manage property, right? And so a lot of these people, these real estate agents that were managing my stuff, they didn't even own their own house. They didn't know what it was like, having to, they're always trying to talk you into doing all this extra stuff. Hey, let's put some flowers. That's not going to impact the rent, man. That you're happy spending my money, right? Well, let's talk about spending your money. And so, um, you know, all those novice investors, if any of them listen to this, they need to take that to heart because the PM companies, the bad ones, they'll spend your money in a heartbeat.
sure. Unfortunately, many of them are incentivized because they get a cut of every project they do. They get an upcharge on a lot of that stuff. So they're incentivized to spend more money
Yeah,
a lot of times, which can be unfortunate.
yep. I was just talking to, I had another podcast I did a couple days ago where, he asked about pitfalls of property management and stuff. And I brought that exact thing. It's because, you know, At the time, we outsourced all of our PM stuff for service work because we were growing at such a rapid pace. We just outsourced all that, and we were hiring more hands in house to help with the management side of things. But no, you're exactly right. A lot of them own their own in-house handyman, so of course, that maintenance ticket comes in, or they're suggesting this or suggesting that. Well, yeah, exactly right. They're getting paid off of that.
Sure. So you said, because the question originally was, is that something that veterans should be looking at? And you said that if they want to deal with all that stuff, what is that? You and I both know what that stuff is, but for the listener who's never done this, what is that stuff that they're going to be have to deal with? I mean, obviously tenants and toilets, but I mean, what is the ugly side of property management? Why would somebody not want to go into
The ugly side of private management typically is everybody's pissed off at you all the time.
it?
Right, because in the end, all the PM is a conduit. Basically,
Hmm.
they're the intermediary between the tenant and the owner. And if the owner doesn't approve something, that whether it needs to be approved or not, if the owner doesn't approve of it, well, then the tenant gets mad at the PM because that's the person that they're talking to, right? And then so if something goes bad, in there's tenant turnover or something doesn't get conveyed properly, for example, then the owner thinks that the PM is throwing the owner under the bus to the tenant when in reality the PM dropped the ball and doesn't want to look bad to the tenant, so they're making the owner look bad, and so when that happens, you're less likely to get renewals. And then when you don't get a renewal, then you get turnover, and then you got lease fees and vacancy and negative carrying, all that stuff, right? And so, um, I could go on and on for hours about that, but sorry.
No, I mean that's exactly it. I started my career off in commercial property management, and there was like a 3 week spin, and I went from San Antonio to Temple was my area that I managed property, and I had a 3 week stint where I had to have 12 calls, basically within a 3 week period. It's all 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Something happened at a property. Something, somebody broke in, water line busted, something. And of course, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting up, putting the pants on, and I'm getting on the truck to start heading that way. And it was so bad that my wife would joke. She's like, which Sanchita is this? Which girlfriend are you going to tonight? Kind of thing. And she knew it was the industry. She knew what it was. And but it was a 3 weeks of literal hell. I remember my boss coming down to check on me, and I am passed out in a mechanical room, because I think I got up at 3 o'clock. There was a break in. I was there till whatever 7, 8 o'clock at night. I took one meeting that I had to do, or that morning took one meeting I had to do. Realized I was way too exhausted to drive back to San Antonio, and I was like, just sleep here in a mechanical room. And luckily, she came and checked on me, told me to go check into a hotel. It's okay, the company would pay for it. But like those are the things that I think a lot of times property management that can be a little unnerving, and
Oh,
it,
sure.
and maybe not in residential near to that same extent. Commercial is a little bit different, but yeah, I mean, the steady paycheck is great, and I think it's a great opportunity if you're looking for the steady paycheck. You don't want to live commission to commission, but that's the flip side is you being the middleman, you dealing with the midnight moves or all that kind of fun stuff, which I don't know can be a little stressful.
Sometimes I'll do my own maintenance stuff. Extremely, extremely rare because I got my handyman that takes care of stuff like that. But I had owned this duplex, and the tenant said something about the refrigerator broke. Well, I just happen to have another refrigerator in my garage, which sometimes I do if I sell a property or whatever.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, okay, I'll take that ticket because I'll get a text on my phone, I'll get an email for the maintenance request. So I accepted it, and if you here's another golden nugget for your listeners. If you do your own maintenance and you don't self-manage, don't ever tell these people that you own the property. Period. Don't tell them. Because if you tell them, they'll show you this and they'll show you that and they'll show you that since they got you. So that this particular tenant didn't know that I own the property. So I'm the repairman. I'm going to take out the old fridge, put the new fridge in, hook up the water line, all that stuff. and this tenant had put in a previous request for a new back screen door. Well, they had three large, massive dogs
Mm.
that had torn up some of the carpet and done some damage. And so, of course, I denied the screen door because it wasn't like heating issues or cooling issues or plumbing issues or leaking roof. It wasn't anything that was necessary. It was uh, like a luxury type thing, right? And so I show up, I'm swapping out the fridge, and then this guy, well, no, that's how I open up the conversation. I'm testing the PM company, even though I know the owner because I sold it to her. She was minority owner when we started it. I'm like, how's the property management company? He goes, oh man, they're great. He says, but the owner is just an asshole. I said, oh really? I said, I don't know. I just do repair work for these guys. So what the owner do? He goes, he denied us getting a new back door. I'm like, oh, I said that's unfortunate. I said maybe it has to do with the dogs. I don't know. Anyway, don't ever tell the tenants you own the property.
Knew an investor that he kept a work shirt that said Greg or whatever his first name was, but kept it on there so he would show up. And sure enough, he just looked like he was the maintenance guy. He did the same thing. He had it in the office. He said, "Oh, I'm gonna have to go fix something today." He changed shirts real quick, walk out with a work shirt on, and played the same thing. And it's the amount of people that would tell him things that he'd find out about the property management team that wasn't doing what they're supposed to, or those kind of things was fascinating. He had tons of stories, but he gave the same advice. Don't ever tell them you actually own the property. Don't ever give them your actual cell phone number because they're going to be the ones that message you at, hey, the faucet's dripping at 2 o'clock in the morning. Can you come fix it right now? Like, what? Yeah, definitely, definitely fun times. So don't miss those days, the 3 a.m. phone calls and all that kind of stuff. Don't miss those days at all.
That, that's why I outsource and I pay a very small amount now for that purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we start to wrap up, as you've kind of had a few different roles kind of in real estate after your time in military, is there anything that you would likely have done differently or maybe started earlier or maybe a lesson that you wish you didn't learn as difficultly as you may have learned?
Oh, of course. Honestly, I wished I would have got my license sooner. I wished I would have started investing sooner, just like almost any investor says, right? And so, anybody that's out there that's just an agent, if you can invest, you know, buy your own product, right? Uh, that'll make you way more money in the long run, most likely, if you're good at investing, than being an agent. Well, plus full disclosure, I'm not a CPA, but there is a particular tax provision that helps, right,
Yeah.
with your taxes.
Yeah,
Um,
if you're actively participating in the industry, there are definite additional benefits. Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. Well, Robert, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story and with the nuggets of advice you gave. I think they're definitely some of the better ones we've gotten throughout here, especially for somebody who's thinking about doing the investing side versus the agent side. Definitely some valuable insights.
Oh, let's talk about a real good win real quick, if you don't
Oh yeah,
mind.
yeah,
So, do you remember when all the iBuying was happening back in like 2021 or so with Zillow and Open Door and all those?
yeah.
I had I had a SMS text campaign going on, always looking for properties, right? Always
Mhm.
looking for my next deal. And so I found a deal. It happened to have a pool on it. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to flip this thing. I'm not going to hold it as a rental. So I closed on it. I was in and out of that property in 90 days from start to finish. I mean, day one, my GC was there, the foundation guys were there, the AC guy was there, the roofer guy was there, the pool guy was there. Everything was just like an orchestra. Everybody was doing their job, everybody was in their lane, working together. It was such a quick turnaround on this property for the condition it was in versus what we sold it at. But the day that I bought it, I underwrote it that I was going to clear right around $70,000 on the property. Okay. Remember, I was in and out in 90 days, right? So between the day I bought it and the day I listed it and sold it because I had multiple offers in the first 48 hours. Because this was, again, 2021 when all the crazy stuff was going on.
Sure, that's where everybody
So,
was buying. Yeah.
yeah, and rates were super low. Again, I thought I was going to make 65 to 70 on it. I ended up netting $120,000 on the property. And I did it because of all the iBuying going on. There was so many houses transacting in that subdivision from the day that I bought it to the day I turned around and listed it. It drove up the price that much more, which is another testament to why all these iBuyers went out of business, right? Because I would look down the street and I would see open doors for sale signs in like 4 or 5 different houses in that on the same street. So they were driving up their own comps,
Right.
right? And so it was just this vicious cycle of if they, when they list this house, when they list this house, this one's going to drive this one up because the price kept on going up that much more, as well as the frenzy going on because people were paying like, you know, well over retail, and the interest rates were so low. But
Yeah.
I was able to save the, uh, the check from that thing right there. So I paid cash for the house. I didn't want to use hard money, and so that helped pay for this house that we're living in now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, there's definitely some advantages to getting out there and getting the market right and putting your money in. And I agree. I think as real estate professionals, we should be investing in the market, some way, somehow, whether that's through, more REITs and more substantial things or buying the properties outright. You should be a part of the market because you're going to know better what the market's doing than the average investor. And, it takes a while time to get the capital built up to buy that first property, but once you get there, I mean it's smooth sailing, and that's where many agents I think go wrong is they plan on selling their book of business to retire, but most books of business you may get one times your income, and that's it. If that, most don't even sell their business off. So you gotta start thinking about think about retirement early on when you get started.
Oh, 100%. Veterans can do, the VA home loans and zero down, or, you can do FHA and go 3.5% down. You can use your 3%. So all you got to really do is come up with 0.5% plus a little bit of extra money to get into your first house and live in it for a couple years, and then move out, and then wash, rinse, repeat. Speaking of people when you're in the service with, there was an E7. He was an E6 when I met him, and then when I got out, he was an E7. At every duty station, he bought another house to live in. I'm sure you knew guys that did that along the
Oh
way
yeah,
as well. Because whenever you go, you've got that network of people that helps you find, houses off base to live in. And so you establish that relationship, I bought this house. Hey man, here's my information. Rent this thing out to somebody else that's coming in, and you're good. So that's what he did.
yeah. We knew guys that did the same thing where they bought a house and then they just kept it inside our career field, just kept it inside our MLS, so they knew somebody was coming in. Hey, so and so's getting ready to here. Why don't you move in? It's so and so, Sergeant so and so's house. Oh, okay. So it turned around to be people that they all knew. They all just needed a place to live. So even there, like they really weren't worried about commission or any of that kind of stuff there because they were just keeping it inside the same career field because we were small enough that most of it knew each other and we all rotated. When one of us was leaving, somebody was coming in afterwards, and BH was the same. So, Smith moved out and Jones moved in as he PCS'd in. You had a month of downtime.
I mean, if anything, in theory, it could even be better than Section 8, right? Because it's guaranteed money coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And they did the same thing too. Hey, if you put it on an allotment, I'll knock off $50 or $100 of the rent and, put it on an allotment so you knew it was coming every single month.
And if you don't pay your rent, if your chain of command finds out, you're in trouble.
Oh yeah. Well, and you knew the chain of command in these situations. You knew the chain of command because you're probably in his chain of command, which made it even more fun and awkward. But no, yeah, it great things, and in hindsight, that's one of the things I wish I'd have done when I was in the service was start buying property when I was there. Didn't know, didn't think I could, didn't think I had enough money to, and in hindsight, I did. I just didn't do it right.
we've got a Marine on our team, so we have to speak super super slow for him. And whenever he's filling out contracts, he makes sure to use a red crayon and everything. But we brought him in, we trained him up. He's been with us for, I don't know, 6 or 8 months or so, and he's already done 4 or 5 deals, I think.
Mm.
And so if he can make it, and I'm not trying to be mean about it, right? If he can make it, man, anybody else out there that's listening, uh, can make a career out of it as long as they put in the effort.
That's a lot of it is the effort. So, well, Robert, thank you so much for your time on this one. Thank you so much for the insights on this as well and sharing those successes with us. We do get people that reach out that ask questions, so hopefully you're willing to jump in the comment section and kind of answer those questions if anybody does have anything for you.
Sounds good. I appreciate you having me.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.